Well, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Mohawk Motors. My name is Jason. We're working on the 2 trucks into 1 truck Silverado project and making some progress. I've been down here for a little bit already. I got some stuff done. I'll catch you up and then we'll move on with the next part. All right, so I've been down here for about an hour and a half working on really this door, okay? My one gripe about the GMT 800 trucks is the door hinges. They're all welded. There's no adjustment. There's no movement. The cab side of the hinge is welded in place. The door side of the hinge is welded in place. Like I said, there is no adjustment in these hinges. So from the factory, 99.9 of them are lined up. They look good, nice even gaps. Great. And from that point, I mean, it's awesome. The hinges are welded. They're not going to move. The only way your door can get out of alignment is if your door pin bushings wear out, which happens, but not a huge deal to replace, or something gets bent. And in this case, something was bent. And I don't know what was bent. So I got to kind of try to look at the problem that I was having and then work my way backwards from it. And in this truck, the problem I was having is the bottom part of the door was overlapping the door opening. And the top part of the door still had, factory appearing gap. So I had to think about where the truck was hit, how the truck was hit, and what that would have done. So my first thought was, it pushed this lower hinge back. Well, like I said, these are not adjustable. So the only thing I can do to try to adjust them is push. So I started pushing the bottom hinge back forward a little bit. And keep in mind here, we're working with a large lever. This door is about 3 feet long from front to back. So a tiny adjustment in the front makes a substantial difference in the back. So I adjusted the lower hinge a little bit and it got a little better. But then the problem I was having was the door was hanging too low and didn't want to line up right. So had to try something else, Guys, long story short, after an hour and a half of banging on the hinges and adjusting and tweaking and pushing up on the door and doing all kinds of stuff to try to undo what I think happened, I've got it pretty well lined back up again. My door gap isn't perfect, but it's pretty darn good. My body lines line up, and it's not dragging on the hinge when I shut it. You can see, just give it a push. Whoops, bad example. But you give it a little push, and it shuts and latches like it should. So I'm happy with that. I'm calling that good. That's part of what you get with a reconstructed title, right? Is it's not going to be perfect. So then the other thing, and I had shown this when I tore the truck apart, but this fender mount was bent way down. This fender mount was shoved back. This fender mount was shoved back. And part of the cowl here was bent down just a little bit. So fortunately, this is all thin sheet metal. It wasn't real difficult to just get these tapped back into position with a hammer. And once I get the fender fitted up, I'll be able to make any little fine adjustments if I need to. But honestly, there's a lot of adjustment in the fender itself, and there's plenty of wiggle room on the fender. That shouldn't be too difficult to get lined back up again. So I think my cab side of things is good now. The door lines up well enough that I'm happy with it. I'll be able to get the fender lined up pretty well with the door. I'll be happy with that. And then we'll work our way around. The next step is get the core support put on, because I can't do fenders or anything else until I have the core support on this thing. So I'm going to get that fitted back up. That should be pretty simple. There was nothing wrong with the core support off of this truck, so I'm going to put it back on, and then once we have that on, I'll get to trying to fit this fender up. Hey guys, well, it's a couple hours later. It's a little after midnight. I got carried away. I was just in the zone. I was getting stuff done. And here we are. We're at a mostly reassembled truck. You can see I've got the fender here on the driver's side. And this one really, it was not bad to get it lined back up again. I had to put a couple shims under the upper mount behind the door here and tweak this mount just a little bit. But otherwise, I mean, it lined right up. I'm happy with my gap on the door. And, you know, I've still got my good gap at the back of the door. So I'm pretty pumped with how this side went back together. This was a side that I thought was going to fight me, but it really wasn't bad. And I've got most of the engine stuff hooked back up. Coolant system is hooked back up. Air conditioning system is hooked back up. I actually have that drawn down to a vacuum. We're right at 30 inches of mercury. So we're gonna leave this sitting overnight. Hopefully when I come back out tomorrow, it'll still be at 30 inches of mercury, and we'll know 30 inches of mercury, 30 inches of water, and we'll know that we've got a good sealed up air conditioning system. I'll go ahead and get that charged once I'm ready to start the engine. What else? Like I said, I've got the cooling system all hooked up. All the transmission cooler lines are hooked up. Obviously the intake ducting hooked up, fan shroud, all of that jazz, all hooked up here. Pretty much ready to go. Fuel lines were done before we put the body back on it. So pretty much all I have left to do on this thing tomorrow is get all the electrical hooked back up, which, guys, it's gonna take me longer to get everything routed where it's supposed to be than it's going to actually take me to get things hooked up. I mean, we're just putting factory stuff back together under here. There's nothing complicated, there's nothing tricky. We're just putting it back where it goes in a truck that's not smashed. So we'll do that and then fill it with fluids. Got to get it filled with transmission fluid, got to get it filled with engine oil, power steering fluid, coolant, get all those things filled up, and then we'll be pretty much ready to give this thing a start. And really, it should start right up. I didn't do anything to the engine. I didn't mess with it. All we're gonna do is put a new oil filter on it and put new oil in it and start it. So I'm pumped. My years of practice taking the front ends on these things apart and pulling engines is paying off and getting this all put back together. And we're getting close on this thing. I'll have to give it a final once over once it is all back together, because I really I really hope that I can get it through inspection in one try. Which reminds me, windshield. Got to get the windshield replaced also. I have plenty of good windshields around here, so maybe I'll tackle that myself. I've never done a windshield before, but I've watched it done on a couple of my other vehicles, and I think I can do it. So that's it for tonight. I'm gonna go in, get a shower, get some rest, and then come back down here and hit it hard again tomorrow. Hopefully get this thing started up. Guys, it's the next day. I had a few minutes to sneak down here and try to get some stuff done. Good news. We held our vacuum overnight and doesn't seem to have leaked down at all, which is excellent. Very good news there. And I dumped in the antifreeze that I had, but I still need a little bit more. So I have more on the way. I'm gonna get it lifted up in the air and make sure that I have an oil filter for it, and then get the oil dumped into it, and I gotta get transmission and fluid into this thing too. So I think I have just enough time to do those things, and then I'm probably gonna have to go get on with what we have to do today. Well, it's later that same evening, and I'm back down in the workshop, obviously. it's time to get the electrical part of this thing all hooked up and ready to go. Now, I've said this in my other videos about V6 to V8 conversions. Getting the correct donor makes your life 10,000 times easier when it comes to actually getting everything hooked together. And here's another really good example of it, okay? So the truck that I'm putting this stuff into is a 2000/2002, right? Cab is 2002, headlight harness 2000. The truck that I took the engine and PCM out of and associated wiring for those, the fuse panel as well, is a 2002. Now the nice thing about that is 2000 to 2002, they're almost electronically identical. GM changed very, very little in the electronics from 2000 to 2002. Really off the top of my head, the only difference I can even think of is that the 2000 V6 used the older style PCM, like in the OBS trucks, and then 2001 and 2002 used the newer, like 411 style PCM. But for the most part, I mean, 99% of this is going to be just plugging everything back in. I'll plug the headlight harness back into the fuse panel. I'll plug the body harness back into the fuse panel. I'll plug the chassis harness back into the fuse panel. I got my other two sub connectors in the fuse panel that I'll plug back into each other. Like, it's almost all just plug it in and put it back together. And I still have the engine donor truck out back. I still have the front end harness that matches the cab. I have the front end harness from the 2000 from the white truck. I haven't gotten rid of anything. So if I come across a different connector or something like that, I'll show you, and then we will work our way through that issue, whatever it may be. So I'm gonna start plugging things back together, getting all the wires and everything routed where they belong, where they're supposed to be. And then, like I said, if I hit any snags, I'll show you what it is. If not, the next thing you see is gonna be me saying, hey, it all plugged right back together. And we'll be getting ready to probably do a test fire. That was very easy. Everything plugged in, connected up, hooked up, no problem, just like I expected it to. I mean, literally all the plugs matched, all the pins in the plugs matched, everything is right back together. So I'm gonna put the fuse panel cover on this thing, the corner brace, and then the PCM cover, and then I'll chuck a battery in it. Double check, make sure I didn't forget to fill any fluids, and then we'll see if we can get this thing to start up. It should fire. Probably have to prime the fuel system, but after that, it should fire right up. Oh, I guess I have to dump some gas in it too. But yeah, I'll bring you back. We'll see if this thing starts together. All right, boys and girls. So one other change that I didn't mention before, and these drive-by cable engines, the throttle cable. The V8 throttle cable is different from the V6 throttle cable. Not a big deal, very easy to change. So I swapped out my throttle cable. I got my little ground to the firewall hooked up here. Double checked all my fluids, power steering, engine oil, transmission are all full. Coolant it's full enough for a test fire. I think I'm like a half a gallon short, but I'll have more coolant in a couple days. It's good enough that I can start this thing up for a few minutes just to make sure it runs the way it should. But before I do that, I need to go into the computer and I need to disable VATs. This computer is not going to recognize this body control module or ignition cylinder. The ignition cylinder is not a big deal. I can reprogram for that. But the body control module, it's not going to recognize it and it's not going to want to start. So I'm going to disable that. Show you that real quick. And then I think we're ready to try to start this thing up. All right, everybody, so here we are in the VCM editor in HP Tuners. Ignition key is turned on. We're going to connect to the vehicle. And there's a good sign. We have a connection right out of the gate. And then I need to read and tire, and this shows what this engine is from, a 2001 Chevy Silverado. Actually, I should say it's from the PCM is from a 2001 Silverado. So we're going to read that. And we got a couple of minutes to wait. So I'll bring you back as it finishes up. All right, just about done. Okay. Now, I am going to save this. With all my other stock tunes. In case I need it again. There we go. Now we're going into System. And you can see VATS control is still enabled. It says Serial. We're just going to change it to None. We're going to close out. We're going to save as. We're going out of our stock tunes. We're going in here. We're going to title this just like so. We're going to save it. And now we're going to write this back to the truck. Okay, and I need some credits. Of course I do. Now I need to resync my interface to get my credits into my little module. There we go. Now I can go in, I can show license options. Oh, and I can unlock unlimited. So I'll do that. Now, to actually remove VATS, we need to do right entire. This is super, super important, guys. If you do a right entire, do not mess with anything, because if you do, you may brick your PCM. So we're going to hit right entire. First, I'm going to put the computer down so I don't mess it up. Then I'm going to hit that. And we're going to let this thing do its job. It should only take a couple minutes. And there we go. Right is completed. So we'll close it. Turn the key off. And we should be ready to start this thing. All right, everybody. Well, as you saw, we've done the computer changes we need to do. And all the fluids are full. I got some gas in it. I think all that's left to do is cycle the key a couple times to try to prime the fuel up to the fuel rails. And then we'll see if it'll start. hear the fuel pump working, that's good. All right, we should have fuel up there. Let's see if this thing will start. Make sure we don't have any fluid spraying anywhere. Got good oil pressure. Got good voltage. I don't see anything leaking over here in the power steering. See anything leaking over on this side? You want to check the transmission fluid. Transmission's a little low, I expected that. Forte and a half. Let's see if that gets us where we need to be. Give that a second. Everything's quiet, no noises, no exhaust leaks. No leaks from any of our transmission lines. No drips or anything underneath. Got an airbag light on, which is to be expected. All the airbags are low. ABS light on. That we'll have to look into. Could be because the module isn't the one from this cab. Could be something else. We'll figure that out. And the master brake warning on as well. Could be the same problem. Nothing alarming though. Alright, let's see if our transmission fluid is filled up. transmission coolers were both completely empty. The transmission lines were pretty much empty. I drained the transmission and put a new filter in it. See if that gets us where we need to be. This thing runs so smooth and quiet. Very nice. This thing's gonna be a nice little driver. I'm excited to get this thing on the road. Well, that was a huge success. Very excited about that. Not surprising. It went exactly how I hoped it would. But I think the next thing to do, the next most logical step here is get the front end put back together. It's got to be put back together to go through inspection. Everything's got to be connected and hooked up in order to get all of the lights working, make sure all of the dash lights go off, all of that stuff. So yeah, that's just the next most logical thing, is get all the front end hooked back together. Plus then I can get some of all this clutter cleaned up and out of my way as well, and get my workshop back in a state that I feel comfortable working down here. So yeah, I'm gonna set you guys up on time lapse. We're gonna put it all back together, put it all back. Well, everybody, as you can see, I got the whole front end back on the truck. Grill, lights, front bumper, hood, all back on. Everything fit right up, lined right up, like no problems at all. Very happy with that. And the fact that my body line at my fender, my hood, my grill, like all that stuff lining up well, makes me feel good that I've done a good repair. Like everything is going how it should be going. And all that's left now, at least for this portion, is get the bed back on it, get the tail lights hooked up, make sure all the tail lights are working correctly, how they should be. And then that'll probably wrap up this video. But it's a little after 11 o'clock and I'd have to shuffle a bunch of trucks around, not to mention get the tractor out and blah, 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 blah. So I think tomorrow we're gonna try to stick the bed back on this thing, and then we'll wrap this video up. But guys, I am pumped. I am really excited about this thing. I'm not excited about the paint, but I'm excited with how it's turning out, how it's looking. I mean, it's gonna be a really nice truck for somebody. So, especially, I still gotta get through the interior and do everything I wanna do in there, which we're not going crazy, but we're gonna make it a little bit better than it is. So yeah, I'm excited. I hope you guys are enjoying. And as you saw, like V6 to V8 with a drive-by cable truck, very simple. Much, much easier than in the 03 and later where the V8s went to drive-by wire. So that's it for tonight. I'm gonna go get a shower, get some rest. And like I said, hopefully tomorrow afternoon I can sneak down here and we can get the bed back on this thing. Well, everybody, as you can see, we have an entire truck again. I'm very happy with this. Everything lined up really well. All of my bed mount bolts lined up really well. I went ahead, checked all my lights in the rear. All the rear lights are functioning the way they should. Third brake light, cargo light, those are working the way they should. Bed lines up well with the body. I'm very happy with this thing. Really looks good. I might look through my inventory here and see if I have a little bit bigger set of tires, because these look kind of, they look kind of dinky and small. So if I have something just a little bit bigger, I think I might stick those on there. I think they'll look better. But otherwise, this thing is complete on the exterior for now. I don't want to do anything else to the exterior of it until I get it through enhanced inspection. But we still have at least one more video before then, because we got to tackle the interior on this thing. We got to get some seats in it. We got to get a carpet or a floor liner in it. I haven't decided which I'm going to do yet. We got to take care of the used up airbags, get some new airbags in it, and replace any affiliated components to make sure that the airbag system is working correctly. And what else? Got to do a headliner, all the interior plastics, a windshield. But a lot of that stuff is really easy to do. It's just put it in, put it out. You know, nothing crazy complicated, so that won't take too long. But I think I'm calling it for this video. Like I said, that's got all the body frame, exterior, drivetrain is all ready to go, and I'm really happy with it. I'm pumped about how this thing turned out. So let me know down in the comments, what do you guys think? Worthwhile project, or did I waste my time? I guess we'll find out when it's time to sell it, right? So thanks a lot for watching. Hope you enjoyed. And until the next video, everybody, take care.